Hello again, welcome back to Asgard, and welcome back to our Betweenlands Spotlight Tutorial Showcase. Today we're going to be talking about the remaining kind of odds and ends within the mod, including the different pets that we haven't covered prior, as well as equipment that goes into the equipable slots. Now first up, we're going to talk about the equipment first, and if you go into controls and just go down to the Betweenlands here, you can see it adds 5 different controls. We've got our caving rope control, equipment menus, lurker skin pouch, your primary ring, secondary ring. We've talked about how to activate our primary rings and our secondary rings before. We will briefly talk about it. We've got 2 rings to cover today that we have not covered prior. But I do suggest you go in here and set this to, whatever you want it to be. And this is the Radial equipment menu, which you guys have seen before. And of course, there's a few things that can go in here. Basically, you can have amulets up to 3 of them. Let me go ahead and just unequip this one for the time being. And you also have 2 ring slots. You have your bark amulet slot, and you have your lurker skin pouch slots. And we're going to talk about lurker skin pouches first. They start out as 9 slots, but they can be upgraded just by taking a lurker skin and putting it around it. And then you'll go up to 18, 27, and then later on 36 slots that are available. And what we can do is we can open these just by holding them, just by right clicking. And so we could have a few lurker skin pouches on us with different things in them. So I could put that in there, put that into there, and you can see they work pretty much like a backpack from any other mod. But then in addition, we can equip these. And you can have one of these equipped at a time, and you can just hit your button and open this on the fly. It's great for having something that you need quick access to, or just a tool bag or something like that. There's plenty of slots in it to make it quite useful. And the nice thing about Betweenlands stuff that most mods don't do, if you have another backpack mod, you can equip a lurker skin pouch and just have another free slot, as well as you can have 2 rings, 3 amulets, bark skin or bark amulet, all of that equipped in addition to everything else that you would normally have equipped in modded. Now next up, we have the last 2 rings that we haven't really covered. We have kind of talked about the Ring of Ascent because I've used it, but basically what the Ring of Ascent does is it's going to use XP, and it's going to allow you to hover off the ground, only about 4 or 5 blocks off the ground. And if I go off the edge here, for example, you can see I'm going to just slow fall down. So it does give you a bit of slow fall, where normally you would have to have, say, a volar pad or something like that. And it will allow you to hover over the water. It is pretty much the best form of Betweenlands transport in the mod, because you can bypass all the water, bypass needing boats, needing Draytons where you have to fight off the Chiromal riders. You can pretty much just float around at will, all you want. So, and the Ring of Ascent, it can be found pretty much anywhere that you can find loot. There's a small chance to get a Ring of Ascent. It is fairly rare. In the past, in packs, it's taken me literally days of playtime to find one in some cases. For example, in SevTech, it took me an absolute ton of time to get a Ring of Ascent. So depending on luck, you may find it in your first chest, and it may take you a while. Just check in any kind of dungeon chests, as well as just the little small spawner areas that you find, like in marshes and stuff. You can find them in there as well. Just keep an eye out for that ring. Now, lastly, we have the Ring of Power. It grants a bonus to attack damage and movement speed at the cost of XP. Now, the Ring of Power works a little bit different than other rings. The way it works, if we just right-click this on, throw it on, we're going to get increased movement speed. Kind of like having, speed, or speed 2, I guess, equivalent. And then in addition, we're going to deal an additional 50% damage. For example, if I throw down some hags here, there we go, we can kill them off, and you'll notice kind of a green flame that comes up off of them. And you're going to see this also with like the tar minions. They'll have that same kind of green flame effect. But when we hit mobs and that green flame comes off, that means the Ring of Power is active. Now you're going to notice down there at the bottom right, the mid bottom right, you can see all my equipped items that are equipped through the Radial menu, and you can see the Ring of Power there, and it's got kind of a durability bar. This is an example of one that's been totally drained out. And what that is that's kind of its durability. And so what we can do is if we have one that's totally drained out, this is when you would use your XP. It doesn't drain XP by default. You can see there's no passive drain just wearing this, but it's going to passively drain durability to this ring. And a full durability charge is about 30 minutes worth of Ring of Power before it runs down. But then what we can do is whenever it's fully depleted, we can just right click it, and you can see it's going to drain a bit of XP, and it's going to put durability back onto this ring. Now, stuff that repairs the ring is not going to repair, or stuff that repairs durability is not going to repair the ring. That is purely repaired with XP. There may be some mods that can repair it, I don't know, but like Betweenlands, like for example the animator, it's not going to be able to repair the ring. And that pretty much covers the rings. Now last up we need to talk about amulets as well as middle gems in general. So within the world of the Betweenlands, there are basically these 3 different gems, and they kind of work like, you can think of them as like fire, grass, and water from Pokemon. For example, you have your strengths and your weaknesses. And each gem is going to be strong against another gem. And this is what's known as the middle gem circle. And basically, you have your, your green middle gem, which is strong against aqua middle gems, because it's kind of like grass beats water. It's pretty much exactly like Pokemon, if you ever play Pokemon, which I think most people have. So your grass, your green, is going to be strong against water or aqua, but weak against fire or crimson, And then crimson's going to be weak against aqua, but strong against green, and aqua is going to be strong against crimson, but weak against green. And that creates the middle gem circle. So if you have say a crimson middle gem, and you come across a mob that has the effects of a green middle gem, you're going to deal increased damage. But if you come across one that is, aqua, that has an aqua, it's going to deal increased damage to you and have more resistance to your damage. Now, when it comes to weapons and armor, of course, you can only equip one gem to it. So if you have, say, a bunch of crimson middle gems on your armor, like your armor's fully crimson middle gemmed out, and you run across an aqua mob, it's going to deal increased damage to you, right? You can kind of balance that out by, mixing up the types of gems that you have equipped onto armor and onto weapons. But I will say, unless you're like min-maxing for like PvP or something like that, it's not all that important. I prefer to look at the effects of tools and armor and go based on that. So each gem is going to have a different effect based on if it's on your tool or if it's on your armor. Aqua has a chance to weaken the enemy when attacking, and when it's on armor, it has a chance to gain defense when you're attacked, which basically means you're going to build up resistance whenever you get attacked. And whenever you attack a creature with it on your weapon or your tool, you can apply the weaken effects. Now, Crimson, it's going to give you strength when you attack with it on a weapon or a tool. And on your armor, it pretty much gives you the Thorn effect. So you have a chance to hurt enemies that attack you. And then the green middle gem, when it's on your weapon, you have a chance to heal when you're attacking. And when it's on your armor, you have a chance to absorb damage when you're attacked. I think most people, myself included, tend to prefer the green because it gives you that added layer of survivability. And it's extremely, extremely powerful. Especially when you have like all 4 armor pieces slotted with green middle gems, and you have all that extra chance to absorb. It makes a huge difference. It really, really does. And bear in mind that these can be applied to non-Betweenlands armor and tools as well. Some armor and tools don't play nice with it, but the majority do. And so you can apply these onto other things to give them middle gem effects. Now you also have these amulets, and basically you can equip these by default just one, and it gives you both the armor and the tool effect at once. and it is going to increase your damage against particular types. However, you get these amulet slots, and I know we've talked briefly about these, but what you can do is you can right click and you can add amulet slots up to 3. Now it does do durability damage to the amulet slot, so it will take a little bit of damage, but that's okay. And if you have, say, I just added 2 additional slots, so now I can actually go in and equip all amulet types. So if we look at in third person, you can see all 3 different amulet types are spinning around me. And with this setup, I pretty much nullify kind of bonuses and penalties to other gem creatures, but I get all those passive effects going. Now, if I was to stack on, green on my sword and green on my armor pieces, I'm going to be super effective against blue slotted enemies and players, and weak, of course, against the red ones. So, for example, if I was to spawn out a bunch of swamp hags, eventually, it's not a super common chance, but we will see. There we go. There's one that has a crimson middle gem on it. Not all enemies can have this effect, but swamp hags, whites, tar base, peat mummies, dreadful peat mummy are all going to be able to have this effect. So you probably won't see it on lurkers and chiral and things of that nature. So just a heads up on that. And the amulet slots, of course, drop from any of the main bosses. They'll drop 1 amulet slot. So if you need 1 or you need more of them, that's how you're going to get that. Now, in addition, amulets can be applied to pets. And I know we've talked about this and we've even shown it off a couple times, but let's go ahead and kind of segue into the pets that we have not yet covered. First up, we have the tar minion, which you craft this with animated tar-based heart, which is just made in an animator. And tar-based hearts can be dropped or they can be crafted with tar drips. Tar drips are pretty common drops from tar-based, whereas tar-based hearts are fairly rare drops from tar-based. And once you craft your tar minion, what you can do is, for example, go ahead and just place out a hag here. You can toss your tar minion on the ground, and any creature that's hostile to you, or hostile in general, it's going to attack them. And you can see it's doing a bit of work. That was a red gemmed hag there, and you can have multiples of these out at a time. And they're whooping up the lurker now. They're just battle hungry at the moment. There we go. And now eventually these tar minions are either going to die or despawn. They have a 6-minute lifespan, after which they're going to just die. They're gonna despawn. Now if I attack this, you can see it kind of goes and it explodes and it drops an inanimate tar minion. Now whenever it explodes, what happens is it applies a slowness effect and does a bit of damage as an AoE around it. So if it died from attacking, it may get one last hit in to damage enemies. I will say that tar minions do not have a whole lot of health, so it's likely in any kind of a serious battle that you might use these in, they're probably going to die. But the thing is that you do get them back. Also, their attacks do deal slowness. If you notice, whenever they were out, those little like black flames that came off, that was them applying kind of a slowness effect and dealing damage. And so they are pretty useful, and in addition they can be slotted with amulets. So we can do that, and for example, we can actually just load this one up. So we can take our amulet slot and right click that a couple times, throw on a red and a blue. Now if we summoned a hag, he's going to beat it to death. And the nice thing is, with a green slot, amulet slotted in, it is going to regen some health whenever it does damage. So the green gem alone is going to increase the kind of the survivability of your tar minions and allow them to kind of take a few more hits before they die off. And whenever they die, you can see that we do get our amulet slots back, and we get our inanimate tar minion. And this can be used in an animator to get back your tar minion, which you can then throw back out and let it do work. Now last up, I do just want to briefly mention this. They're not so much pets as they are just things that you can do, but you can run spores and root pods through the animator to make root sprites and sporelings. And what's really, really neat about the animator, which I've come to find as I was working on Tales, and those of you that got to play kind of the early versions of Tales are probably familiar with it if you play very far into it. But with the animator, and then of course you can right click once they're spawned and basically just spawn them into the world. Not really so much pets, but you can create them and set them up in your base. So I just kind of wanted to show that on camera. But on that note, one thing that's really neat about the animator for people that are making packs, if you go in and you customize the recipes for the animator, you can actually have it spawn different mobs with different items. So for example, in Tales, in early versions of Tales, I think one of the recipes was if you put in sugar, you could get pixies from Ice and Fire, and they would spawn and it would make a pixie, because pixie dust was such a big pivotal part of early progression. So they were generated through the animator. So just kind of a neat little thing I wanted to mention about the animator is that you can make recipes with item inputs with mob outputs through the animator, which is a lot of fun and something that you don't see a whole lot of in modded. So something to kind of keep in mind. And I believe with that, I think we've covered everything I want to cover in this episode. I know it's a little bit shorter of an episode, but we're kind of just wrapping things up and covering the kind of the things that we haven't really touched too much on or haven't finished touching on within the mod. So next episode, we are going to be covering farming. It's going to be a little bit of a longer episode. The next two episodes probably is how I'm going to do a farming episode, an alchemy episode. They'll be a little bit longer, but that's pretty much going to wrap up our Betweenlands showcase for the time being until some of the newer content comes out. So anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, as always, be sure and hit that like button and go ahead and subscribe if you're not already to stay updated with when new videos come out. And I hope to see you guys next time. So until then, as always, do take care, stay safe, and I'll see you guys then.